yourselves.
So I work at home. We live in Park Slope in Brooklyn, and I have a little study down at the bottom of my house that opens onto the garden, so it's very, very sweet. And I try and write in the mornings. I find I can only really write for kind of 2 or 3 hours at a time. It's hard to just write for 8 hours. I did a study a while ago that coffee actually does enhance your cognitive abilities, particularly your memory, but only for the first cup. And so my technique is to have a very, very large cup of coffee that I write next to. And then in the afternoons I'll research and have a meeting if I have to, and kind of catch up on email and things like that. And then I'll sometimes, after the kids go to bed, I'll go back downstairs and I'll work a little bit more, normally over a glass or two of wine, just to make it feel like I'm not, that I'm actually having fun, and it's not just, I'm not just a workaholic. With wine, I find that I certainly can write kind of at a normal level, and sometimes kind of maybe even write a little better over the first glass, and then it goes downhill pretty quickly from there. And I actually will sometimes advance the ball a little bit on that second glass, but normally I have to do some edits the next day. The thing that I try and do always, though, one of my work routines is that I always leave myself something, at night where I'm in the middle of a kind of a sentence where I know where I'm going. I try not to kind of complete a section and then shut down for the night, because if you have to start fresh with a whole new section or a whole new chapter, it's so easy to just procrastinate and not start it for 2 weeks or something like that. Whereas if you know exactly the next thing you're going to do, it's much easier to kind of get in gear. And oftentimes what I'll write at the end of the night is I'll write a complete sentence and another complete sentence, and then I'll write, and then do this, and then do that, and then do yada, 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 and just kind of sketch out where it's about to go so that I have something to pick up. There's a thread that I can pick up the next morning. Right, when I'm really working on a book, I try and write 500 words a day. I'll often write more than that, but I try and write at least 500, because if you write 500 words a day, after 4 months you'll have a book. Like, they keep adding up, right? I don't throw out a lot. I do a lot of editing. With this book, Where Good Ideas Come From, I did a lot of organizational work in the second and third drafts, where I moved whole sections, like kind of spun out chapters and broke chapters in half. And it was very, the kind of structural work in this book was more complicated than anything I'd ever done before. So I do move things around a lot, and I polish and I add, but I almost never say, oh, those 10 pages I don't need, I'm going to cut them. And I think that helps me write faster. There's not a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor that I wrote and spent time on, but that I ended up not using. I'm bad about it. I mean, I generally keep the Firefox open with Gmail in the background, and I will go and I'll try and work for 20 minutes, and then I'll pop over and see what's happened and get distracted by something, and then go back. And I should be better about it, but I just find that I'm not able to. I find the least productive time, I think most people would say this, is right after lunch. That's when I want to have a nap, not to write. The other thing that I do that is unusual is I use this program called Think, which is kind of my research tool. And I store a lot of information, little clippings and things that I found from books and from websites and other things in there. And Think is very good at kind of noticing interesting connections between little snippets of text. And so I use it actually as a kind of improvisational writing tool in addition to just a database. So I'll write something and I'll say, okay, Think, find me things that are like this. And oftentimes it'll suggest things to me that I had read and been really interested in 7 years before, but I'd totally forgotten about. And it will often send me down a kind of an interesting new avenue. I switch back and forth between, generally I've written in Word, but I've used Nissus Writer, and another one I used, I can't remember what it was called. But mostly I write in Word, but I use this as kind of the storage mechanism for all my data. Two giant monitors, so when I'm in, serious kind of cobbling the book together mode, I can have the browser open, the Word document open, Think open, and oftentimes digital books now open, where I can kind of scroll through them, so I can have 4 separate windows open at the same time.